Come with me on a 4-day trip to Malta. Here I am with my little carry-on because I paid £100 for my Ryanair flight. Going up to pick the girlfriend. Here she is walking. Quick duty-free stop to get the pineapple Ciroc. Then went for a fat munch at Wetherspoons because our flight was at 8:55 AM in the morning. Obviously had to get the Guinness in, would be rude not to. This was taken pre-snowstorm just as we were leaving. Landed in Malta about 1 PM. It's currently the off season, but it's still 16 degrees. Quick tour of the hotel room, which we paid £200 for 4 nights, and it was based in Sliema. Little balcony shot, no sea view, but I'm not complaining for £200. Wasted no time and hit the street straight away. Quick little cinematic down the Sliema coastline. This is where all the bars and food places are. Carried on walking, you can see Valletta in the background there. Found this nice little quiet place called Tigny Viewpoint. Me just judging whatever's going on right now. As you can see, I'm just shaking my head. Nice little cinematic, which didn't make it into the intro, but you can see how nice the view is with Valletta in the background. Walked back to the main strip, in which every single bar does happy hour between 12 and like 7 PM. Got changed for dinner, but only had like 3 outfits on me if I'm honest. Then got dinner at a place called Jungle Juice. It's a Thai place, absolutely banging, must recommend. One side is a bar, then the other side is for food. Honestly though, as an Indian, I thought I could handle spice, and you can see the fear in my eyes when I was eating this food because it was so damn spicy. There's a little outside shot of the place. It looks back street, but honestly banging. And that concluded day 1, just chilling in Sliema. Day 2, we then got a ferry from Sliema to Valletta, and it only cost €6 for a return ticket. Now our day 2 trip to Valletta is really where I began to fall in love with Malta. You really begin to get a sense of the Malta culture, architecture and history when you visit Valletta. Like this church you're about to see was built in 1566. Like how wild is that? It's over 500 years old. This building you're seeing right now also stems back to the 1500s and has been used as headquarters by many invaders, but is currently occupied by the Prime Minister. We then visited these gardens, which were very peaceful despite the amount of people you see in the video. There was also some sort of filming going on for a new TV series which is coming out. This was the famous actor, which is the main star of the show, but no idea who they were. They also do a cannon salute every day at 12, so we paid €3 to get a close-up view. Quick trigger warning for volume. Another quick cinematic, which looking back at, I probably should have put in the intro because I do like this. It looks quite nice with the cannons either side. Surprisingly, still a lot of horse taxis around in Malta, and headed out the city so we could turn around and see what the city gates looked like if you were coming in as a visitor. And honestly, the video doesn't do it justice on the size of this structure. Obviously chucked in a quick ice cream break, quick little video of the city street, which considering it's the off season is pretty busy, so I don't want to be here during summer. We then visited St. John's Cathedral, which was very expensive to enter. I think it was like €25 each, but it was so worth it. It was one of the most intricate designs I've ever seen. The floors are tiled with writing and images. The walls are tiled with writing and images. You can see the ceiling images everywhere, and then everything is just laced with gold all over the place. You can sort of see on this video just how vast the whole design is, but even this video doesn't do it justice, so I'd recommend going. Then did a quick cinematic in this room with one of the most famous paintings that they have. Had to then get a quick lunch munch, followed by a little off-road walk along the coastline. And then we said bye to Valletta. Our hotel in Sliema had a nice little infinity pool, so we went to check that out before dinner. Did a little cinematic video, which didn't make the cut either. Then cracked open the Ciroc before dinner so we could have a few drinks. Nice little sunset video, slowly getting a bit more artsy with my videography. Then got dinner at a place called Agu, which is founded by 3 brothers, and it doesn't really have a cuisine. It's just sort of a mismatch of all these dishes from across the world, but it was really good food. Day 3 was an excursion day going to Gozo and Comino, so here's me just prepping for the day ahead. Here was our classic touristy boat for the day. This trip you're about to see cost €40 per person. First stop was Gozo, which took about an hour and a bit for the ferry to get to, so it's a small island up in the north of Malta. We had 3 hours on this island before the ferry would leave us, so we headed straight away to the old citadel. If you've ever watched Game of Thrones, this whole city was just giving me GOT vibes. Here's some prehistoric fossils which they found. This flag went to the moon on the Apollo mission. Then we stumbled across this little hidden terrace which was above one of the shops, so no one had access to it. So I did a quick little cinematic. They had an old little prison cell, which honestly people must have been much shorter because I was struggling to fit through the door as a 6'2" male. But a lot of the walls had these hand carvings made by prisoners of boats, punishments, their name, which is pretty cool. Now this was my favourite part of the old citadel, and the video doesn't do it justice, but you can walk along the city walls and you can just stare at the view, and it's just so nice. Here's a second view of the city walls, then me just doing a little selfie video, probably looking like a bit of a weirdo to everyone else. Tell me hallways like this just don't give you Game of Thrones vibes. Quick pizza stop off because all that walking was making us hungry. I paid €1 for this pizza, and honestly, look at the size of this slice. It's the size of my head. We then quickly headed to the Giganta monolith. Now, if you've watched Ancient Apocalypse on Netflix, you'll understand what this site is. If you haven't watched it, it probably just looks like an unimpressive pile of rubble. But this building structure is older than the pyramids. We're talking about 5,000–6,000 years old. Now, I believe there's hundreds of these all over Malta, but this is the biggest one that was ever made. As you can see, there's not much left, but it's still pretty cool to see. And it was now time to say goodbye to Gozo, but honestly, you could spend a whole day in Gozo. We only had 3 hours, but there's so much to do there. We then got to Comino and decided to pay an extra €20 for like a cave tour. For real though, just look how blue this water is. We then went on our cave tour in quotations. This was as up close as we got to caves, but it was still pretty nice just sitting on the boat driving around for 20 minutes. We then explored Comino, which I'll be honest, there's not much to do there, but we came across this one drink stand they just had house music blasting, and they were selling cocktails out of pineapples. Here's my pineapple cocktail, obviously living the influencer life. And honestly, there's not much to show you about this island. I literally just spent an hour just sitting down thinking about life, but I'm still glad we went, you know, just sitting there, sitting by the sea, getting some sun and just living life in the slow lane for a bit. Chucked my pineapple in the bin and we headed off back to Sliema. Little clip of my IG story because I was so proud about the monoliths. If you're not following me, get on there ASAP, Sandhu_C. Ended the day with a quick burger and a bedtime pint. Day 4, we decided to head to the old city Mdina. Now, one thing to note is you can actually buy an all-day tour bus pass, which is €25 per person. Now, we had this bus pass, but we just missed the bus in the morning, so we just quickly got an Uber, which is about €15. Some scenes of Game of Thrones were actually filmed in this city. Again, just a bit of an appreciation clip for the architecture which we see around Malta. Now, one of the wildest parts about this city is people still live here, so as you're walking around, there's apartments filled with actual residents. Another quick cinematic in the city streets. One element that really brings these streets to life are the bright elements you see in the doors and the windows, and we were lucky to see Mdina when the streets were quiet. Now, the building you're about to see, they think dates back to the 1200s, but they're not actually quite sure how old it is, which again I just found wild. We then left the city walls of Mdina and ventured off to St. Paul's catacombs. This was my first time visiting any type of catacomb before, and I was surprised with how small and narrow the passageways were. And here is some pagan tombstone, I believe. We then jumped on the tourist bus out of Mdina towards the Golden Bay, and here's a little outside view of the Mdina city walls so you can get a scope of how big it is. We then reached the Golden Bay, and first thing we did is a quick pit stop for food. And here is the famous Golden Bay, a small beach, but it wasn't very touristy. We then decided to do an off-road hike to try get a bit more of a bird's eye view. And this was the view we were greeted with. As you can see, Golden Bay, blue seas, small beach, and not very populated. After a few hours at the Golden Bay, we then decided to head back to the bus stop. Took us just over an hour to get back to Sliema from the Golden Bay. Had a few happy hour cocktails, and then enjoyed one last walk along the Sliema shoreline, leading me towards the final clip of the holiday.